I never thought I'd be the guy who ends up on a thread about infidelity. I believed in our marriage truly. We'd been together 8 years, married for 5. Life was routine. Yes, but warm. Safe. Oh, so I thought. It started with a gut feeling. Every night, after we'd wind down and get into bed, she'd scroll on her phone. I used to think nothing of it until I noticed she'd always smile softly, sometimes even laugh. I'd ask, "What's funny?" and she'd shrug it off. Just a meme. Or, "Sophie sent me something dumb again." But it wasn't Sophie. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and saw her screen light up beside me. She was still texting. I pretended to be asleep. Her face glowed in that dim light, fingers moving quickly, a half smile on her lips. The next morning, curiosity overtook my guilt. I waited till she was in the shower and checked her phone. It was him. Her ex. The one she said she hadn't talked to in years. They'd been texting every single night. For over 3 months. Late night thoughts. Memes. Inside jokes. Nostalgic reflections. Even old photos. Nothing outright sexual, but it didn't need to be. What hurt worse was how much she was opening up to him, emotionally, something I hadn't seen from her in a long time. She called him the one that got away. He called her his midnight gal. I felt sick. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She cried. Said it wasn't physical, that she missed the way he understood her, that our marriage had gotten quiet. Quiet? We had movie nights, cooked together, took weekend trips, but I realized she didn't feel seen. And instead of turning to me, she turned back to a ghost from her past. That hurt more than I can explain. We tried therapy. It helped, a little. But trust isn't a light switch it doesn't turn back on just because someone says, "I'm sorry." Some days, I think we're rebuilding. Other days, I feel like I'm lying next to a stranger who once loved me, but drifted away, one midnight text at a time. Emotional betrayal is a uniquely devastating form of infidelity, and in many cases, it leaves deeper scars than physical cheating. When a spouse or partner forms a deep, emotional connection with someone outside the relationship, especially with an ex, it shatters the intimacy and exclusivity that emotional bonds are built on. In the story of the husband discovering his wife texting her ex every night, the emotional betrayal wasn't about sex or physical contact. It was about late-night conversations, inside jokes, and shared nostalgia things that are supposed to belong within the walls of a committed relationship. These seemingly innocent texts carried the weight of emotional investment. They weren't just about checking in, they were about being seen and being understood by someone other than her husband. That alone changes the dynamic of a marriage entirely. What makes emotional betrayal especially painful is that it's hidden in plain sight. There's no lipstick on a collar, no hotel receipts, no strange perfume. It's silent, digital, and emotionally charged. A partner can sit next to you on the couch, laugh at your jokes, kiss you goodnight, and still go to bed thinking about someone else, mentally drifting away from the relationship while remaining physically present. That's what this husband was experiencing without even knowing it. His wife wasn't absent. She was still there sharing meals, sleeping beside him, going about life, but a part of her heart had quietly wandered into another person's world. And that person just happened to be the man she once loved before him. The betrayal stings harder when the person involved is someone you were told not to worry about, especially when that person holds significant history and unresolved emotions with your partner. Emotional cheating also thrives in secrecy, which is another brutal element. The wife wasn't telling her husband about the conversations she was having late at night. She hid her phone screen, lied about who she was texting. She protected the connection she had with her ex, preserving it like a fragile secret that was more valuable than the truth in her marriage. That secrecy is a sign of emotional investment, and that investment is the core betrayal. When someone starts to confide in another person about their struggles, their happiness, their dreams, and regrets, especially if they stop doing so with their spouse, it begins to create a parallel relationship, one where emotional needs are met outside the marriage, and the primary relationship starts to lose its center. For many people, emotional betrayal is even harder to forgive than a one-night stand. Physical infidelity, while damaging, can be seen as impulsive, lust-driven, and not necessarily filled with emotional depth. Emotional affairs, however, involve choice, thought, repeated engagement. There's a level of commitment to it that makes the betrayal feel more personal. It's not just about someone cheating on your body. It's about someone sharing the most private, sacred parts of their mind and soul with someone else. The husband in the story wasn't just hurt by the fact that his wife was texting someone else. He was devastated that her words, her attention, her laughter, and her vulnerability were being given to someone who wasn't him, and that she had made that decision night after night. Emotional betrayal often leads to identity-shattering moments. The betrayed partner begins to question their worth, their connection, and their understanding of the relationship. The man in this story began to realize that even though he thought the marriage was warm and stable, his wife had a different reality unfolding inside her. She felt unseen, disconnected, and instead of addressing that with him, she reached back to a familiar place, her ex, for validation. That reaffirms a brutal truth. Emotional cheating isn't always about the other person being better. It's about your partner not telling you they're unhappy and choosing someone else to fill that void. Emotional betrayal undermines the very foundation of emotional safety in a relationship. Love is built on the belief that you and your partner are emotionally exclusive, that your inside jokes, your late-night conversations, your shared memories belong to just the two of you. When one partner steps out of that bubble and builds an emotional connection elsewhere, it bursts that sacred space. And rebuilding it takes more than apologies. It takes accountability, vulnerability, time, and the painful process of healing from a wound that no one else can see, but one that cuts to the core. Trust rarely breaks all at once. More often, it unravels slowly, thread by thread, moment by moment, until you're left wondering how you got here. In the story of the husband who found out his wife had been texting her ex every night, the breakdown of trust didn't come with a loud explosion. It crept in quietly, disguised as small suspicions and gut feelings. What began as an innocent curiosity quickly turned into an uncomfortable awareness that something wasn't right. He noticed subtle changes, her late-night phone use, the secretive smiles, the way she brushed off his questions with vague answers. These weren't hard proof of betrayal, but they were enough to plant a seed of doubt. And once that seed took root, it grew rapidly in his mind. One of the most painful aspects of a slow unraveling of trust is the internal conflict it creates. He didn't want to believe his wife was hiding something. After all, she still cuddled up next to him, still made him coffee in the morning, still said, "I love you." But those comforting actions began to feel hollow when paired with her increasing emotional distance. The man found himself caught in a limbo where nothing was obviously wrong, yet everything felt off. This is the cruel reality of emotional infidelity. It's subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but emotionally jarring once noticed. When your instincts start to alert you, but you have no concrete evidence, you begin to question your own sanity. Am I being paranoid? Am I just insecure? Do I not trust her? That internal back and forth makes the unraveling even more painful. Each time he doubted her and then convinced himself it was nothing, a piece of trust cracked just a little more. Trust is often described as a glass. It's clear, strong, but fragile. The more tiny cracks you ignore, the more likely it is to eventually shatter under pressure. In this case, the pressure came in the form of one late night when he happened to wake up and see her still on her phone in the dark, smiling into the screen. That image, the woman he loved, deeply engrossed in a private moment with someone else, was the beginning of the end of his ability to rationalize away what his heart already feared. The worst part was how long she kept the secret while acting like everything was normal. Every shared dinner, every goodnight kiss, every moment of laughter between them was shadowed by something he couldn't see but could feel. That kind of duality in a relationship is deeply damaging. One partner is living in one version of the relationship, believing in its security, while the other is maintaining a second, hidden emotional world. The imbalance is not just deceptive, it's cruel. When he finally looked at her phone, all the little inconsistencies and strange feelings made sudden and brutal sense. It wasn't just the texts themselves that hurt. It was the realization that she had been capable of maintaining a lie for so long while pretending everything was fine. The gradual loss of trust also creates emotional fatigue. You begin to feel exhausted by your own thoughts. The husband in the story likely spent countless nights wondering what was going on, second-guessing himself, trying not to seem jealous or overbearing. Emotional cheating takes that quiet toll, makes you feel guilty for even suspecting the person you love. But the problem isn't suspicion. It's that your instincts are often right, and you've been taught to doubt them in favor of giving someone the benefit of the doubt. This wears a person down. It turns love into anxiety, routine into dread. Each moment of silence becomes heavy. Each smile feels performative. And the slow build of these emotions makes the eventual discovery hit that much harder. Once trust is broken, especially after it's been deteriorating quietly for months, it doesn't just snap back into place. It leaves behind layers of insecurity, moments that can't be undone, and memories that feel tainted. The husband couldn't unsee those texts, couldn't unhear the term midnight girl, couldn't forget that she chose someone else to share her thoughts with night after night. The hardest part about the unraveling of trust is not just that the person it's that they had opportunity after opportunity to stop, to come clean, to choose honesty. And each time they didn't, it added another fracture. Even after the confrontation and attempts to repair the damage, the doubt lingers. It resurfaces in small ways when her phone lights up unexpectedly, when she laughs while texting, when she's quiet for too long. Rebuilding trust means confronting those moments over and over, reminding yourself that healing takes time, but knowing that it may never feel as solid as it once did. Secrets in relationships rarely start out as grand deceptions. More often, they begin with familiar comfort, with a subtle pull towards something or someone that once felt safe. In this story, the wife's emotional reconnection with her ex didn't happen out of nowhere. It was rooted in history, in unresolved emotions, in shared experiences that predated her marriage. Her ex wasn't just an old flame. He was someone who once knew her in a way few others had. That depth of familiarity made it easy for her to slip back into conversation with him, to rekindle a dynamic but had never truly extinguished. The past can feel like a warm place when the present starts to feel distant or cold, and emotional attachment, when left unspoken or unprocessed, has a way of creeping back in. Her relationship with her husband wasn't necessarily broken. On the surface, things seemed steady routine, perhaps, but loving. Yet even in seemingly stable marriages, emotional needs can go unmet, especially when communication becomes more functional than heartfelt. It's in these quiet gaps, these unmet needs, that temptation takes root. The wife may not have consciously sought out her ex with the intention of betrayal, but emotional gravity can be subtle. Maybe it started with a, "Hey, how have you been?" message. Maybe she saw a memory pop up on social media and acted on impulse. Whatever the reason, the initial reconnection was likely casual, even innocent. But the emotional momentum built quickly, because familiarity brings safety, and safety breeds vulnerability. There's a psychological draw to someone who has already known you deeply. It feels effortless. You don't need to explain your backstory or carefully choose your words. You're speaking to someone who already gets you. For the wife, this reconnection may have filled emotional spaces she hadn't even realized were empty. Her ex knew the version of her from years ago, before the responsibilities of marriage, before the routine, before the emotional fatigue that can come from long-term relationships. It's easy to romanticize someone from the past when you don't have to deal with the realities of a life built together. That illusion of simplicity can be intoxicating, and in that illusion, secrets begin to form. The creation of a secret emotional world starts small. A few texts here and there, a late-night message, a memory shared. But soon, these conversations become habitual, something to look forward to, something that starts to matter more than they should. The wife began to compartmentalize her life. She maintained her role as a wife during the day and became someone else after dark. That dual existence is what makes emotional cheating so corrosive. It's not just about the betrayal. It's about the effort it takes to hide that part of yourself from the person you're supposed to be closest to. With every message she sent, she was deepening her emotional bond with someone else, while simultaneously distancing herself from her husband. When she started lying about who she was texting, saying it was a friend, or brushing it off with excuses, she was actively choosing to protect the connection with her ex rather than the truth of her marriage. That choice, repeated over and over, formed a web of secrets built on emotional loyalty to someone outside the relationship. And that's where the real betrayal lies. Not in the act of texting itself, but in the investment, the prioritization, the act of preserving that emotional space as something sacred and separate. She wasn't just catching up with an old friend. She was nurturing a bond that once defined her and had the potential to redefine her again. It's also important to understand how emotional attachment complicates the morality of the situation. This wasn't a stranger or a fling. It was someone she had once loved, someone who likely still held a part of her identity. The lines between past and present blurred, making it easier for her to rationalize the connection. In her mind, it may not have felt like cheating at all, just a harmless emotional outlet. But emotional loyalty, once divided, always leaves someone betrayed. Her husband wasn't just being excluded, he was being replaced in a quiet, intimate way that he couldn't even see until it was too late. Secrets built on familiarity are the hardest to break because they don't feel dangerous at first. They feel comforting, nostalgic, even harmless. But they create a hidden space in a relationship, our place, where emotional honesty no longer lives. Once that space exists, it becomes easier to escape into it and harder to return from. For the husband, realizing that his wife had created that space with her ex meant understanding that a whole emotional world had existed without him, one built on memories he wasn't part of and conversations he would never hear. That realization shattered not just trust, but the intimacy he believed was theirs alone.